So when the hospice nurse got there and, Mom woke up in the panic that she was in, we finally calmed her down, and she had her eyes closed, but I highly doubt she was sleeping at all because she kept opening, so I don't think she was sleeping. But she had her eyes closed when the hospice nurse was talking to us, and she really had nothing new to say. She basically said what we already knew. She just kind of confirmed everything. She was there for a while and she explained to us what was going on, and Mom was calmed down. She went ahead and she left. I think Luke called our pastor Mike around that time after the nurse had gone home and everything, and he just wanted some extra support, and he was there right away. Mom knew that he was there. He stayed for a little while. Mike and I just kind of had a little talk about the fact that this is really happening and it's probably going to happen sooner than we want it to. It just, I don't know. That's the day that kind of started everything. And the next 3 weeks were really tough. Really, really tough. After Mike went home, I really didn't know what to do. I mean, I didn't know. I wanted to make Mom happy. I wanted to make her comfortable, and I knew that she loved the Gaithers. The Gaithers are a Christian group that she really liked, and she even requested 3 of their songs to be played in her funeral. She had her funeral all planned out, and 3 of their songs were going to be in the funeral, and they were. When everyone left, I decided to put in David Phelps. I'm sorry, I'm not saying that name right, but he's part of the Gaithers. They played several of his songs on this DVD, and so I put the DVD in, and I kind of even asked her, I'm like, Mom, I'm going to put on the Gaithers. You want to watch this? And she kind of opened her eyes and nodded, and so I played that for her, and I played several songs, and that was just kind of background noise at first, but then we turned it up and really heard it. It's just, I don't know, it was just that night. I just didn't like that night. That night was weird. Luke, I think, was reading Mom some Bible verses sometime during that time. Luke, I'm so happy he's in my life, because I don't know how I would deal with certain things without him, and this was definitely one of them. He actually was able to talk to Mom in a way that Dad and I didn't really know how to at that time, and he joked around with her, and he actually made her laugh. I don't know what he said. I don't know what happened. I don't know what we were talking about, but he said something, and Mom actually laughed. Out of everything that happened that night, after all the bad stuff that was going on and how scared all of us were, hearing Mom laugh, oh, it was music to my heart. It was beautiful, and Dad even felt the same way. He's like, oh wow. We all loved hearing that and seeing that. It was just beautiful. Dad was going to stay the night. He wasn't leaving, and I was going to be there the very next day, and that's what kind of started it all. Dad stayed there that night. The very next morning I was there, and then I stayed until that evening, and Dad came in and he watched her overnight, and that's just the way it was for about a week, for about 5 days. That's the way it was. I watched her during the day, Dad watched her at night. It was a struggle because she wasn't eating. She wasn't eating at all, and she was still drinking fairly good, not the greatest, but she was still drinking her water, and she was still able to talk, just not that much, only when she needed. It was just really hard being there every day. And I did make sure that Natalie was there somewhat. I mean, obviously I didn't want Luke to just leave Natalie there with me, because I couldn't deal with Natalie and Mom. I couldn't do that. He would bring Natalie, and then I would either take her home and have a little break, and Luke would stay with her for a couple hours. I don't know. Just every day was different. Luke helped me out a lot, and I'm so glad he was able to help me out. I'm so glad that he was that he is self-employed, and so that he can make his own schedule. And he decided he needed to take a break from work to help me out. We were in contact with the family. My brother and sister, they had already planned on coming down to see Mom around that time. Actually, they were wanting to wait until Monday to come see her after, the girls were out of school. But Sharon kept calling me and asking, how serious is it? Do we really need to come down right now? How much longer do we have? And no one could give those answers. I would love to have those answers at that time, but nobody knew. And so I didn't know what to tell her. And she wasn't taking my word for it. So I went out there and I grabbed one of the nurses to have the nurse talk to her. And the nurse basically said, you know what? If this was my mom, I would want to see her right now. I would not wait. All I know is that your mom has taken a huge decline this past few days. And if you want to see her, you need to come and see her. And so that kind of settled it. Sharon was like, all right, I'm coming down. So her and Steven came down to see Mom. They came on a Wednesday. They stayed Wednesday night. Thursday they were there most of the day, but then they ended up having to go back to Kansas City before I got there around 4 or 5 or something like that. I don't know when. And they had already planned on coming back sometime soon, but they had to go home to, figure stuff out, and get their personal stuff taken care of before they came back. And so that's what they did. That's the only reason they were going to go home. And Steven, he was going to come back the very next night. And so he only was gone for a day. And I'm telling you, it was really nice to have that extra help. It really was. Before Sharon and Steven got there, I was about to leave for the night, and Dad had just gotten there. And Mom was very scared at night because she couldn't push the call light at all anymore. So we didn't even, put the call light in front of her because she couldn't push it. She couldn't talk very loud, and she was constantly needing us to move her foot up and down. She was constantly needing us to reposition her because she was still getting those twitches. She was still getting really uncomfortable, and we needed to be on top of that. When she said, Sarah, my foot, we needed to snap up and do it. And when Dad was there at night, he tried so hard to stay awake all night, but he just couldn't. He couldn't stay up all night. And so he would fall asleep, and Mom would need him, and he wouldn't be there. And the nurses were coming in every 30 minutes to make sure that she was okay. And within that 30 minutes that they were not there, she would need something, and Dad would be asleep. And it was just an awful time. Dad was not used to staying up all night, and so he really couldn't stay up all night. He tried, especially if he was alone. I mean, it's easier when you have 2 people, but when you're alone, you can't stay up all night that easy. And so Mom was very scared for me to leave and for Dad to stay there at night. And we kept trying to talk to her and make her feel comfortable about it and reassure her that that the nurses are coming in every 30 minutes to check on her. And, if she needs something, they're going to make sure that, they're there for her. And Dad is here for her, and even if he falls asleep, just call for him. He will wake up, I promise. And, we were just trying to say whatever we could to help her. I just kind of started explaining to her, I'm like, Mom, even if it was me that would be staying here all night, I don't know if I could stay up all night with you, because I know I can't. I know that I'll end up falling asleep. And so Dad is doing the best that he can, and he is here for you. She wasn't talking very loud, and so I was having to get up in her face so that I could hear. And I would tell Dad what she was saying because he couldn't hear. And so everything that she said I would have to repeat to Dad. And then finally, after I told her that Dad may fall asleep just because he can't stay up all night, she finally asked, well, then why are you here? I didn't want to tell Dad what she said, honestly, because I knew that was not her talking. And he was looking at me, waiting for me to tell him what she said. And so I had to tell him. So I said that she asked, why are you here then? And he looked at her and smiled and said, because I want to be. Because I love you and I don't want to leave you alone. And I tried to explain to Dad. I'm like, Dad, you know this isn't her talking. You know that she's just scared. You know that she's just in her own mind and her own fears are coming out. Please do not take this personally. And he said, oh no, don't worry, I won't. Even though I'm sure he did a little bit. The very next night, Sharon and Stephen came. And Stephen took the night shift. And he's used to doing stuff like that off and on. And so he was able to stay up all night with her. And so Dad was able to take a break. And it was the very next day, you know, like I said, Sharon and Stephen went home because they only stayed one night. And it was that day that she took another dip. She was very tired because she was on the morphine a lot more, and they increased her dose of morphine, and so she was very tired and not as alert as she, you know, once was. But that day that I was alone with her with Natalie was a really good day, because that was one of the last days I had with her alone before she went into her really bad stage. Now Sharon and Stephen had already warned me that she was seeing spiders on her. It was just a hallucination. She wasn't, I mean, there weren't really spiders all over the place. She just saw them. And so they kind of warned me about that. And so when they left, she told me that there were ants on her. Not spiders, but ants. And she would kind of jerk and, you know, look down there at her arm. And she's like, do you see them? They're right there. I'm like, I don't see them. Where are they? And I, you know, kind of swept them away and, you know, lifted up her arm, and I couldn't see anything. And I just told her, Mom, there's no ants there. It's okay. You know, you're all right. There's no ants. We were able to have a really good conversation. Even though she wasn't completely aware of everything. I keep saying that, but you know what? I don't think that's true. She was aware. She knew what was going on. She knew what was happening. I guess what I'm trying to say is that she was very tired, and she was, you know, her eyes were closing off and on, and I think that's what I'm trying to say. But she was very much aware of everything. We were talking. We had really good conversation. She had a couple of visitors, but she wasn't really awake during that time. They tried waking her up, but she was hearing everything, and that was one of the things we had to get used to, that even though she wasn't appearing to be awake and alert, she just had her eyes closed. But she kind of saying a few things that we had to explain later, and so we kind of had to learn that we can't just say anything we want in front of her. It was around 2 o'clock, I think, when all of a sudden she was sitting in her chair, and she just started coughing and choking, and she was very panicky, and I didn't know what was going on, so I just called for help, and someone came in, and they couldn't really do anything for her. They just had to calm her down and, you know, kind of lift her up and, you know, pat her back, and that's all they could do. But she was just very panicky. Eventually, she calmed down again, and then a few minutes went by, and then she started back up again, and she started choking, and she started panicking, and she couldn't breathe. And I already had someone take Natalie for me. We got some really good, nice people there, and someone had already taken Natalie for me so that I could concentrate on Mom. And I'm not sure why Natalie was with me that day. I don't know. I guess I was prepared for someone to come and relieve me or something like that. I don't know. But I do remember someone taking Natalie from me, and I was able to go back and forth to mom and, to a nurse, and, just be where I needed to be. And so when they finally calmed mom down again, and then it happened again, and I went and called help, and this time the director of nursing came, and she is an amazing person. She's tough, but she's an amazing, caring, generous person. She came in, and she got in mom's face. She put her hand up against her chest, and she had her oxygen on, and she just calmed her down. She's like, Elaine, you have to calm yourself down. Remember, 75% of this is fear. So you need to calm yourself down. You need to breathe through your nose and let this oxygen work. And she was just saying this in a very low, quiet voice. She was, helping her breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. You're okay. Calm down. And she just kept saying the same things over and over again. You're okay. Don't breathe through your mouth, because she kept trying to breathe through her mouth. She would tell her, don't do that. Don't breathe through your mouth. Close your mouth. Close. Breathe through your nose. Let the oxygen work. And all of a sudden, I saw tears in this lady's eyes, and they started to fall down her cheek. And I didn't quite understand it at first. I didn't understand why she was crying. I mean, I just thought, oh, how sweet. She just really cares. That's all. But then someone else came in, and they started crying, and I was upset. I wanted to cry too, because I was upset. I didn't like seeing this.